Although tweening stands for in-between animation frames, we can use modern-day tweening libraries to tween almost anything, including numbers and the fill of a shape. I've set up a 2D project as well as importing TextMesh Pro and some nice colors. I'll leave links in the description for how you can do that yourself. The next thing we need to do is import LeanTween, which I've actually already done, but if you haven't, click this button. And now we need to create a canvas, which we're going to set to screen space camera, drag in our main camera so that we can see it better in the scene. Next, we need to add TextMesh Pro, call this Tween text because it is in fact the text that we're going to be tweening. I like to change some of these settings, so I'll change the font, change the color, change the font size. I'm pretty much changing all these settings actually. I also want to add a shadow, so we can add an underlay of a nice dark color and set the offsets. Okay, so we need to make sure that the wrapping is disabled and that it's centered, and also just change the default text since it's going to be a number at the end. Okay, so now we need to create a script so that we can actually start tweening this thing. So we'll call this tween text as well, and once it loads, we can drag it onto our tween text object, not to be confused with the tween text script, which we're now going to open in your editor of choice. Create a public float tween time variable, and also a public void tween function, which we're going to call from our start method. Next, we call LeanTween.scale, and we're going to scale the game object to a vector3.1 times 2, which is twice the original size, over tween time seconds, and we need to set the easing function to punch. Now, we could do this all in one line, but it gets really messy really fast, so let's split it up into two. The last thing we need to do is make sure that there are no tweens running on it, so we do that with a cancel on the game object, and we also need to make sure that the transform isn't messed up, so we can set the local scale equal to vector3.1. Great, so this should work as long as we make sure to set the tween time to a number something like 3, should be good. And when we play this, on start, it's going to zoom up and then go back down. But I want to be able to run this multiple times, so let's add a button for that. And we can create a UI button, TextMesh Pro as well. Set the width to 300, the height to 100, so it's nice and big. Move it down a little bit. We can change the color to the background color, because I think that looks nice. And add to the onClick event the tween text, and we'll try to find our tween function. So we also want to make this text nice and big. We'll auto size it. We'll set it to the same font, and let's call it what it is. It's going to tween, and let's give it this nice red color to pop out. Great, so this should work, but before we run it, I want to add one more thing to the tweening function. So I'm going to add LeanTween.value, and with LeanTween.value, you can really scale any value you want, any variable. We're going to scale from 0 to 1 over tween time, and also set the ease to punch. And the astute among you may realize that this actually isn't doing anything yet because it doesn't know what to tween. So to do that, we're going to set on update, and this takes a function, so we need to make that function, public void set text. And this function needs to take in a float value because that's what set on update expects. We need to import some extra stuff. So using TM Pro, we're also going to create a public TextMesh Pro UGUI, call it TextMesh with a lowercase t. And this TextMesh, we are going to set the text of it equal to value.toString, and we need to tell it to format the string to 1 decimal point. And then we can just pass this in, and it will run on every frame that the tween is running. Great. So we just need to make sure that we drag in our TextMesh Pro to here. So we'll drag itself in because this is the TextMesh that we're trying to reference. And if we run it, we should be able to see that the text is actually changing. There we go. We can run as many times as we want. So that's all great. I want to show you one more thing you can do with LeanTween.value. So to do that, we're going to create an image, and we need a sprite for the image. And you can do that by going to Assets, Create, scroll down to Sprites, create a square sprite. And now if we drag that in here, we'll see that it gives us some extra options. So let's change the width to 500 and change the color as well. But the important thing is you change the image type to filled and set it to fill horizontal. So now you can scroll back and forth like this. Let's also add a shadow so that it matches our text. And we can make the shadow be pretty dark as well. So let's set the effect distance to 10, -10. And you can see that the shadow scales with the fill. Okay, we need one more script. Let's call this tween image. And we'll drag this onto our image that we're tweening. A very creative naming, I know. So we drag this on here, open it up. And let's just get all of our variables out of the way first. So we can do public image, but we actually need to import something for that. So let's do using unityengine.ui. So that'll allow us to use it. And let's do image with a lowercase I. And then we also need a public float tween time again. And a public color. We need two of these. So begin color and end color. Great, so we don't need any of these, but what we do need is another public void tween function. And in here, we're going to do LeanTween.value, and we're going to pass in the game object again. Instead of going from 0 to 1, I'm going to go from 0.1 to 1, and we're going to pass in the tween time as well. We're going to set the ease to punch, and we could do the same thing that we did before with the set on update, but there's a second way of doing it that I want to show you. So instead of creating a new function down here, we can make what's called a lambda expression, and to do that, we add a little parentheses here, pass in a value, and we make a little arrow with an equal sign and a greater than sign, and then we create a block with curly braces. And I like to break it out like this to make it very explicit that it's its own function. Then in here, we can say image.fillAmount equals value, and this will be called on every frame just like before. And we also want the image.color to be a linear interpolation, aka lerp, from the begin color to the end color mediated by the value. So as long as we make sure to set all these in the editor, this should work. So we drag in its own image. We set it to, let's say, 3 again. The begin color will be the color it's beginning as, and we'll tween it to a nice red for the end color. Now we just need to make sure that the button knows what to do. So we add another event to it. We drag in the image, and we find our tween function again. Tween, there we go. And this should work. So let's see. Okay, so that went off on the start. But if we click tween, you can see that the bar scales up and then tweens right back down. So that's what we said we'd make. If you found this video useful, please leave a like, and you can follow us at Petrichor Games on Twitter for more content like this. Thanks, and have a great day.